All right, offset heads. I know a number of you have been tempted to do this and have been curious to have the question answered. Do Jazzmaster pickups in a Jaguar still sound like a Jaguar, or does it sound more like a Jazzmaster? So today we are quickly taking a look at this 2013 Ken Custom Jaguar, which hit my bench recently. Ended up having to do a couple more mods than even the mods that this had already had prior to my client buying it. So when he had bought this, it already had the body routed for these Jazzmaster pickups, either the Seymour Duncan quarter pounders, which just have a lot more mids on tap, are quite a bit hotter and have larger pole pieces, which give you a bit more of an aggressive Jazzmaster tone, while still being, smooth and chimey and retaining most of the characteristics that Jazzmaster pickups are known for. This had also already been converted to the Johnny Marr wiring configuration, as you see here. And when it hit my bench, we did a couple more mods. We had changed this, as you can see, to have a rocking bridge. This is one of Nova Custom Guitar's 9.5-inch radius bridges. And to accomplish this, because this originally from the factory had come with a tune-o-matic, I had installed Offset Guitars UK's conversion thimbles on this. Additionally, we also upgraded the vibrato unit here because the stock classic player, which effectively that's what the Ken Custom Jaguar was. This was a Japan-only release, but it was made in Mexico. Some very, very quick specs on this. This has an alder body and a maple neck with a rosewood fretboard. This came with the standard Ping-made vintage style tuners. It also came stock again with the tune-o-matic bridge, as well as the classic player Jaguar pickups, as well as the classic player vibrato with the screw-in arm. Also stock, this was in the standard Jaguar wiring configuration and came only in this white with white matching headstock color. As far as the neck goes, this had a 9.5-inch radius with medium jumbo frets. So again, this is more or less like a special edition classic player with a blocks and binding style neck. So one caveat that I did want to mention one more time is, again, the quarter pounder pickups here are just a tiny bit darker. They do have more mids. They are a bit more modern of a sound as compared to vintage style Jaguar pickups, and they are wound hotter as well. So that is one thing to keep in mind as we go through this demo. We're going to keep it pretty clean today, and just to very, very quickly compare, I'm just going to play a couple chords between this as well as my Johnny Marr Jaguar back there, so that you can hear the difference between a Jaguar loaded with Jazzmaster pickups and a more traditional type Jaguar. So we are on the bridge pickup by itself. None of the upper circuit or bass cuts are engaged here. We are at 10 and 10 on both volume and tone, going through the old Princeton reverb reissue. Definitely bigger, at least from my memory, as compared to the Jaguar. Not as bright, and even though these are the quarter pounders, not as aggressive as the Jaguar pickups. So here we go. We are now on both pickups in parallel. Nice. It definitely sounds decidedly more like a Jazzmaster to my ears, which is no surprise because most of the sound does come from the pickups. That said, I believe as I'm hearing as a result of the shorter scale here, and we do have 11 gauge strings, 11 to 49 gauge strings on here, that I am hearing a bit more low end and a bit more like lower mids here, as compared to a traditional Jazzmaster. So that is an interesting combination. We are now on the neck pickup by itself. Nice. Sounds really thick, and you can kind of hear what I'm talking about with regards to just being a bit darker. It's definitely, you know, putting the amp on the edge of breakup, which sounds beautiful. And so, yeah, but definitely decidedly more Jazzmaster-ish in my opinion. So now we are on both pickups in series. This is probably going to sound huge and dark. Yeah, that sounds that sounds a bit muddy to my ears. Definitely not as tight in the low end and the lower mids, or just overall as crisp as the normal Johnny Marr Jaguar with the bare knuckle pickup. So let's go ahead and engage that universal bass cut switch now to hear what that sounds like, because this is typically my favorite position on the Johnny Marr Jaguar. Yeah, that definitely sounds better. Cutting out just some of that mud just makes this series position so much more usable. Let's go ahead and engage that second bass cut switch. I don't know, actually, maybe it's a phase switch on this. This is a mod that I've done to a lot of the Johnny Marrs that have come through the shop over the years. Folks who don't think that that second series only bass cut switch is as usable as something like a half out of phase switch. So yeah, that's what this is right now. So let's just go ahead and hear that. Sounds great. And if done correctly, the wiring was done correctly, then that should also be the same half out of phase kind of sound when we've got both pickups in parallel. So this is without. And indeed, it is half out of phase there. So very, very cool. Let's go ahead and just very quickly plug in the Johnny Marr Jag. So we are now on our bridge pickup on the Johnny Marr. None of the bass cuts are engaged here. So that is decidedly thinner than what we were hearing from the quarter pounder Jazzmaster pickups in the Ken Custom. Now both pickups in parallel. Yeah, definitely thinner, a lot cleaner as well. These are, the bare knuckles are famously known for being really, really low output. They do not even hit 6K. So it makes sense that this just sounds like a much cleaner affair overall. We are now on the neck, and I just want you to hear right now the standby noise on the Jag pickups as compared to Jazzmaster pickups, which are famously insanely noisy. And that is because of those big, fat, wide coils that are on the Jazzmaster, and unfortunately, unlike the Jaguar pickups, those do not have the claws to help shield and also focus that tone. So yeah, it's no surprise to me that Jaguar pickups overall are much quieter. So now we are on the neck pickup. Nice. And then we have got the both pickups in series here. Definitely not as muddy as the Jazzmaster pickups in series. And again, I think that is one of the main reasons why Johnny told Bare Knuckle to make these really low output, so that that series position wouldn't become overly muddy, overly hot sounding, just really, really usable. I love the series position so much on the Johnny Marr Jaguar. Okay, and then now with the bass cut switch, the universal bass cut switch on both pickups in series here. That is my favorite position, for sure. And then now, just with the additional bass cut switch, that's something that's different from that customized Ken Custom, because this one is just a series-only bass cut switch stacked on top of that normal universal bass cut switch. Almost sounds like a thicker bridge pickup, if you will. I really dig the sound of that. But yeah, decidedly more Jaguar-ish. No surprise. Okay, and before we go here, you can just hear just how frigging noisy this is. We're just going to play very quickly. I have now set the Princeton reverb to almost 8, which is going to give us a lot more of that tube breakup from the amp and the natural overdrive of that Princeton reverb. So let's go ahead and just play some quick riffs here. That's huge. All right, that was the bridge pickup. Here's our both pickups in parallel. And then we've got the neck pickup by itself. So yeah, it's starting to get muddy. And that's one of the reasons why most of the time, I'm not a huge fan of hotter pickups in general. Yes, you do get more mids. I mean, that would sound better with the universal bass cut. Yeah, definitely sounds better, but by itself, without that bass cut, definitely Mud City. And then now this is going to be even more so, both pickups in series without the bass cut. It's just mush, just mush. I can't barely hear any note definition, despite the fact that I am, picking in some of that riff. Now with the bass cut, the universal bass cut switch engaged. little bit better. I think it will sound even better with our out of phase switch. And then we've got both pickups now in parallel with the universal bass cut as well as the out of phase switch. And without the universal bass cut. And series without the bass cut but out of phase. Yeah, very, very cool. It's pretty much in line with what I was expecting. I feel like if these were more traditional, vintage wound Jazzmaster pickups, it would be a bit cleaner. But you know, overall, I think that Jazzmaster pickups in a Jaguar do sound more Jazzmaster-ish. You're just going to hear a bit more low mids, a bit more low end, and it's definitely going to be noisier. Now, would I recommend this? I would say that I still prefer the sound of a traditional or vintage spec Jaguar over this. It's one of the reasons why I have both a Jazzmaster and a Jaguar. But if you are looking for the best of both worlds and just prefer that Jazzmaster sound, then undoubtedly, so long as you are willing to do irreversible modifications to the body of your Jaguar, or you have a swimming pool route with an aftermarket body that you've commissioned, then yeah, this is a really, really cool kind of mash up of the two. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, especially if you've been wondering what Jazzmaster pickups sound like in a Jaguar. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell to be notified of new videos as soon as they drop. And don't forget to follow Totally Wired Guitars for more offset guitars modding tips.